All right, well, let's go ahead and get started, and then people can continue to trickle in. So, good evening, everyone. I am Casey Melancon, Director of Autism Services at Easter Seals Midwest. I want to welcome all of you to our first webinar of our four-part webinar series. Today's topic will be self-regulation, the ability to properly manage emotion, behavior, and attention. Please know that everyone will be muted throughout the presentation. As questions arise, please put those in the chat or the Q&A box, and we will address as many of those as we possibly can at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Julie Perry. Julie is a behavior analyst at Easter Seals Midwest in the Kansas City region. Julie has been providing services to individuals and their families on the autism spectrum for over 20 years. She has served in private and public educational settings, as well as clinic, community, and in-home based services. The ages she has served ranges from 18 months to 60 years old, addressing behavioral, social, daily living, and play skills. Her passion is on communication, behavior reduction and replacement, and behavioral variability, and she thrives on seeing progress not only with her clients, but with staff and parents alike. In her personal life, she enjoys spending time with her teenage son, her two cats, reading mystery novels, and completing challenging puzzles. So welcome, Julie. Thanks for being here with us tonight.
Thank you, Casey, so much. And thank you, everybody, for participating and taking time out of your day. I know this time is usually around dinner time and getting off work, so I really appreciate you joining us. We started off on this series to talk about self-regulation, which I think is important, not only for the individuals that we serve and for your children, but for us as people, right? Because we encounter daily issues that might trigger some stress and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and hope technology serves us well. There we go. All right, so we are going to, 1 second here. We're going to discuss what self-regulation is and why it's important, as well as the developmental process. We'll discuss different assessments for self-regulation. We'll review a number of different strategies to aid in the teaching of self-regulation, discuss the settings in which it could occur, and at the end, we're all going to practice some different techniques together. As Casey mentioned at the end, we will do a Q&A, so I highly encourage you to take notes, not only about questions, but also if you'd like to share some of your personal experiences and things that you have encountered in your personal life, so we can all learn from each other. So we will start off with what is self-regulation? So basically, we are looking at a set of calming skills that are necessary when we encounter various stimuli. It sounds very wordy, but what that means is there are multiple times throughout the day when we encounter things that internally kind of stress us out, right? So knowing what self-regulation is and understanding how to use it allows us to be in control of our emotions and our responses to those things that could be upsetting, or maybe not even necessarily upsetting, but that can just be overstimulating, and we don't know quite how to respond to that. This also helps us in social interactions, all right? So let's think about things that we encounter every day. Traffic. You know, especially during those high traffic hours, and people get really excited or anxious to go home and get frustrated by somebody maybe that is in the left-hand lane that is going too slow. How do we respond to that? You know, people without regulatory skills, that's where you start to see road rage come into play. When you get frustrated over maybe a task that you're unable to complete or you don't know how to do. Maybe large crowds. Maybe even people, right? So there might be certain people, coworkers, in-laws, our own children, sometimes our parents might trigger some stress or anxiety with us. Unexpected change is huge as well. So not only for us, but especially for our children, when they have expectations and they are not met, if they don't have this correct self-regulatory skills, then you're going to see a lot of probably non-preferred behaviors that are elicited from them. Sensory issues as well. So sensory overload. So you might have, maybe the lights are too bright and maybe sounds are too much. There's too much going on over here. So you can be overstimulated also, and we need to learn how to bring ourselves down. We could be understimulated. So we need to learn how to balance it out, hence the word regulation. So for me personally, I'll tell you right now, I do have a vestibular disorder. And so maybe this is why this is so personal for me. So I've had to learn skills, especially as I get older, on how to do that, because there are certain places like grocery stores that are a challenge for me. Airports are really, really tough. And so I've had to learn across time, what kind of supports can I do for myself to make me survive and to reduce my anxiety and stress. So, sorry about that. So we are going to go into watch a little video. Excuse me as I hop over here. Hopefully you all are watching this okay.
Successful people have strong self-regulation skills. They use them every day. The skills help them consciously direct, sustain, and shift their attention when necessary. They help them monitor and manage their thoughts, behavior, and emotions in this complicated world of ours. 3 of the self-regulation skills, known as executive function skills, are cognitive. These are used to monitor and manage attention, thoughts, and behavior. A 4th self-regulation skill is the ability to monitor and manage emotions.
Okay, so it came to my attention there was a pause in the slides. So I'm going to back up and apologize real quick here. So if this did not come up, hopefully we can now. So apologize for this. This is our first in our series. So we're learning as we go. So I'm going to do a brief little cap of what a self-regulation is. So this is what we discussed earlier. And it's basically the ability to be able to control our emotions, things that are unexpected. So what just happened right there, right? I expected the slide to change. It did not. I expected a video to change. It did not. But I've learned how to kind of regulate my own behavior. So it is not as anxiety producing as it could be. So that being said, we're going to move on to our next slide. And we're going to pop up a video. And we'll see if this works this time.
Successful people have strong self-regulation skills. They use them every day. The skills help them consciously direct, sustain, and shift their attention when necessary. They help them monitor and manage their thoughts, behavior, and emotions in this complicated world of ours. 3 of the self-regulation skills, known as executive function skills, are cognitive. These are used to monitor and manage attention, thoughts, and behavior. A 4th self-regulation skill is the ability to monitor and manage emotions. These skills are not inborn, but they are teachable, and we depend on them every day, especially when the going gets rough. Just like adults, when students are upset or angry, it's hard for them to use their executive function skills because their strong emotions take over. This can also make it difficult for them to listen, remember rules, and stay focused on learning. So, learning to monitor and manage emotions allows students to recognize their strong feelings and use strategies to calm down. Then they can use their executive function skills again. And research shows students with strong self-regulation skills have higher academic achievement and are less likely to act in impulsive or aggressive ways, or to withdraw when overwhelmed. They're also more likely to get along well with others and have strong social skills. Students with poor self-regulation skills can have emotional and behavioral problems and academic trouble and are more likely to be expelled from school, starting as early as preschool. When students learn and practice self-regulation skills, they can build academic achievement, social competence, and positive growth throughout their lives.
So it actually mentioned in there about executive functioning skills, and I just wanted to say there's so much for executive functioning where self-regulation plays in. And on February 12th, one of our other wonderful BCBAs, Megan Peck, will be presenting on that. And then also social skills that'll be delved into will be on February 26th with Brooke Burris. So I highly recommend checking those out as well. So watching that, we understand why it's so important to have these skills. Especially school is tough for kids anyway. They're learning how to navigate through social rules and situations and how different personalities get along with each other. So self-regulation will help that individual be aware of their emotions and behaviors. And it will teach us that we are in control of our emotions and be able to manage what that looks like. It'll result in a quicker reduction of stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety will always be a part of what we do. It's just how we are set up. So there's no getting around that, but there are skills and techniques that we can learn to help modify and reduce those. It's almost like using kind of external controls to manage internal chaos, right? Whatever's going on inside, how do we get that to where we are calm and we are productive and we can be socially accepted by the people that we are around? It also helps increase independence and self-advocacy. So as adults, we know that if we are in a situation that is frustrating, we know how to handle that. So we have a number of clinics and, we absolutely love what we do. We make great changes, but there are definitely times that are challenging. We work a lot of our kids are working on communication and they don't know how to communicate outside of any behavioral actions. So, we always tell our therapists, like, if you need to take 5 minutes, that's fine. Like, let us know, go take your 5 minutes. People have learned, like, they may walk off for 5 minutes, do yoga. Myself, if I need a few minutes, I'll walk into my office, I'll do some breathing techniques, then I'll come out and I'm good to go. It also increases opportunities for social engagement. So the more that we are able to self-regulate, the more that we can interact with our peers. So here's some indicators of some problems with self-regulation. This first one, it was, my son is now, as Casey said, he's a teenager, so he's 17, but this is what he used to do. And I have video, and if I weren't to embarrass him, I would share it. But I remember when he was younger and he would try to keep himself awake. And he would do that. He would slap his limbs, he would kick his feet, and he would just really fight it because he didn't know how to deal with that internal feeling of you're sleepy, but he didn't want to be asleep and he didn't know how to handle that. So that's, one indicator there might be an issue with self-regulation. We've also probably seen some children who just kind of giggle uncontrollably. We don't know why. I'm always like, what are they thinking? The problem is that they cannot control what they're doing, right? So we're just constantly giggling, and now we're running in circles, and we're just completely dysregulated. It also might come into if an individual may not be able to recognize when they need to use the bathroom before it's too late. And then it says mild stressors, such as temporary misplacing a toy, they may send a child into panic. I say mild stressors. To us, it may appear to be a mild stressor, but for them, it is essentially the end of the world. I was in the clinic today, actually made some notes on some things that I observed that were mild stressors for a few of our kids. One of which, one of our individuals had a problem because a ball was rolling. We would expect a ball to roll. It's round. That's what they do, right? I don't know. I don't know what happened, but a ball was rolling. I believe it was down a ramp. I don't know what the expectation was on his side, but it said he was screaming and he was crying, and so we had to guide him through some self-regulatory behaviors to kind of get him to calm down so he wasn't so anxiety ridden. Also, another thing with the same individual, we've been working on peers and him accepting peers touching his toys. He's great with that. Well, today an adult touched a toy. Well, that was unexpected because now we know that that's something that we have to teach directly and work on. So we had an issue with that. We barely changed the table. We have a child who is very clingy and needs to be like almost touching their provider or their parent, and it's really challenging for them to not be touching them. So we made some arrangements in the room and we shifted the table just a little bit. And that mild stressor was a huge issue for him. So there are some ways to assess these challenges. So direct observation across multiple settings. It doesn't require a BCBA or anyone with any type of educational background to see that someone is in distress. If you go into a room and you see somebody is crying, or if they are spinning around in circles or running and pacing back and forth, we know they are dysregulated, something is off. But there are some indirect assessments I wanted to share briefly with you all. These are not all autism specific. One is called the Pro-Social Self-Regulation Questionnaire, and this is geared for late elementary and middle school children. And this assesses why children engage in various pro-social behaviors. We also have what's called the Fast Track Project Child Behavior Questionnaire. And that provides a standard normative framework for both parents and caregivers across 8 different domains. So we're looking at what would a neurotypical individual, how would they respond in certain situations? And how does your child respond? And how is that different? Another is called the Preschool Self-Regulation Assessment, the PSRA. And that's a brief, structured battery of tasks that assess a child's self-regulation in the emotional and behavioral domains. This includes tasks such as delayed tasks, filtering out competing stimuli. So how do they fare when we have, teacher over here talking and another student over here, and then we have bells in the background, and then we have lights flickering. How do they respond when we have all these competing things going on? It also assesses task cooperation. The last one is the ERC, Emotion Regulation Checklist, and this is a 24-item assessment that measures one's ability to manage and cope with emotions. These are all searchable, so you can look them up on Google, and last I knew they were all free unless anything has changed. So it might behoove you to check those out, and it may be helpful to help guide you into what direction that you need to go to assist your child. So what does this look like in the early development? So social and emotional milestones are often harder to pinpoint than physical development, right? Physical complications are easy to spot. They're always present. Whereas with social and emotional milestones, you may not see because it relies on a few things. One is going to rely on the context. So we might have families come in and say, we don't have any problems at home. I don't know why at school they're having such difficulty. Well, at home, there's expectations, right? They grew up there. They know that in the morning they have breakfast, they have lunch, they watch TV, they take their bath, and and then they have dinner and they go to bed. So the same expectation is met every time. You go into other contexts where you have other people and unexpected events that occur. Maybe you have a new teacher that comes in. Maybe Johnny took your ball. Things that you probably don't experience at home is going to be different out in the community, out in school settings. So the question always comes up too, is it nature or nurture? And so studies have told us that it's a little bit of both. We have some genetic predisposition to how we're going to respond in certain situations. And then we have the environment, right? So what is modeled for us, which I think is huge. So, what we see and how we learn. And if we are not taught early on to self-regulate, we aren't going to have that baseline of skills to build on as we get older. So by the end of the first year, individuals go from developing control of arousal and sensory motor functions. And by that, I mean, when children are babies, they may self-soothe by thumb sucking, twirling their hair, some of those type of behaviors, to where when they get a little bit older, they're able to follow the suggestions of other people. So I see you're frustrated, let's take some deep breaths, that sort of thing. It becomes more sophisticated when children are about 3 to 4 years old. Now, understand this is neurotypical age development. So some of our children at 3 or 4 may not be quite at that level. By ages 6 to 8, they are more capable of being deliberate about their actions and planning ahead and conscious control. And I think this is really important because I do have a lot of parents and they'll have a 4-year-old and I think they have the expectation, like, I don't understand why he's getting so upset because we're taking a new route to school. They don't really have the ability on their own to be able to self-regulate, right? So it's having a good understanding of when these processes take place will help us with our expectations of what we have for our children. So let's add to the mix of a diagnosis of autism. Often, a lot of our children have comorbid diagnoses, right? So we might have some ADHD, might have some anxiety, you might have a lot of sensory disorders. So for those who are already having trouble in some social situations, add autism into the mix, and it's really, really challenging for them. So I think about some of our kids and their expectations, and if that isn't met and they have this other competing stimuli, that's really, really hard for them to manage. So we might have some kids who like to put things in order, right? A lot of our individuals are very orderly. A, B, C, and D, 1 through 10. Everything has their place, right? We're lining up things in a certain order. If something is thrown off, then that might be a challenge. If we're putting numbers together from 1 to 10 and the number 5 is missing, how do we handle that? We're making a rainbow and we do not have the color yellow. How do we manage that? For us, it may be a little easier. For children with autism, they're very rule governed, very strict on what their expectations are, so it's even more challenging. And then if you have them in an inclusionary classroom, you have all those other pieces that they have to compete with, right? So what does dysregulation look like? So it varies. So there are some individuals that are instantaneous. So if something changes and they are triggered, they're going to immediately respond. So you're going to get maybe a scream, or they're going to get upset and just throw something or aggress. Generally, say generally, because nothing is in absolutes, but generally those are instantaneous, are at a lower intensity and usually quicker to recover. Whereas those individuals where they have distress that builds up, this would be me, you have stress that builds up, it gets to a certain point, right? Like you're going, your baseline is here and here and here, and all of a sudden you're in the red, and then somebody just explodes. So these individuals typically have stronger reactions, right? So it's going to have an increase in intensity, an increase in duration, and it's going to lead to some sort of behavioral outburst. And you may have multiple topographies, is what we call. You might have multiple responses that are occurring. So now we have a child who is screaming, and they're flopping on the ground, and they cannot control their body. They're spinning in circles. They're running around. So when this happens, a lot of individuals learn to look at their parents or their caregiver to be what we call an external self-regulator. And I see this a lot. I was on vacation actually, and there's a child, and I don't know how many times, but obviously this one was very dysregulated and kept asking for mom, mommy, mommy, mommy. It occurred. I'm a data nerd anyway, so I collected data. It happened like 8 times in a matter of 5 minutes. And that's because it's a learned behavior, right? They're getting stressed out, and so they're relying on their mother to help calm them down, which is fine. But what we want them to do is to be able to learn to manage their own behaviors, to reduce those strong reactions, and to be able to express their emotions in a more effective and socially, I guess, acceptable response. So how do you self-regulate? I know you guys can't answer, but I want you to think about this, right? So some people might take a walk after lunch. Some people might engage in yoga, reading, taking hot showers, journaling. For me, I mentioned earlier, I have, vestibular disorder. So I know there are certain situations that's going to kind of trigger that. So I know going in, I was in the airport the other day, and I know the lights there are going to bother me. So I have what are called FL21s. And so they're like rose-colored glasses. No, they are not cute, but they're function over form, right? So I have those available. I have my headphones ready to go on classical music when I know people are walking by me really, really super fast. I also have a backpack on that I hold on to because I need to be holding on to something. I can't just willy-nilly my hands because I will kind of go all over the place. Same thing with the grocery store. I always have to have a cart. I don't care if I'm going in to get, a bag of cat food. I'm going to have a cart with me because it helps stabilize, and it just kind of helps me ground myself. So just think about kind of the things that you do and know that we have these abilities to do these on our own. Our kids do not have that yet. So the question is, where do we even begin? All right. So there are different games that we can play. So games that involve varying speeds. So Itsy Bitsy Spider, things that you can match your pace with. So a lot of times we'll have like drums, and we might, work on imitation skills. If your child does not have imitation skills, please work on those. It's the basis of all learning. But we'll go in and, bang on the drum, and then we'll go fast and then slow and fast and slow. And so them learning how to shift and change and pace, and knowing that unexpected things are going to occur and they can recover. These are some slow and fun ways to get them used to that. Also traditional games. So Simon Says, Red Rover, Red Light, Green Light. This helps our kids learn how to follow conditional instructions. So if this happens, we do this, right? If a friend takes our toy, this is how we respond. So it's the kind of this contingency-based activities that we can embed early on where they look fun. It's not work, it's work, but they don't know it. It's okay. Board games, simple collaborative games. Turn taking is often a challenge for our kids. So getting them to understand, we're going to go back and forth. You're going to get an opportunity, right? And we're going to do really quick turn-taking games. Some we are just playing today is, I'm drawing a blank, but it basically has marbles, and you take turns pulling one peg out at a time, and all the marbles fall. It's a very quick game. So you learn, you take a turn, I take a turn. Community-based outings. So real life practice is huge. I'm thinking of a certain individual I used to work with had difficulty with automatic doors, right? Opening and closing, also crossing over thresholds of doorways. So we came up with a program to work on this. And it took a while. And I don't mean just 1 or 2 visits. I think we probably took 20 visits to this place, baby steps, until the individual was okay with the doors opening and closing. And we made it a fun game. So we would drive by it first and we made a song with it, like open, close, open, close. Then we get closer to talk about it. We get in the car and we leave. Do this quite a few times until we were comfortable going in. So today it's not an issue anymore, but you have to put the practice in. You can't just expect to try it one time and give up and say, this isn't working. You just have to keep practicing. Another is taking a break from a preferred activity, doing something different, and then returning to the preferred activity. A lot of us and a lot of our kids probably have a little bit of OCD, right? So we have to finish things to completion. Personally, I have an issue with having to-do lists because I like to have a task and I need to complete my task. That's just not realistic for what I do. I get pulled from left and right, putting out fires, not literal fires, but if there's something going on and somebody needs assistance, I need to stop what I'm doing and go assist. Sometimes I need to stop what I'm doing so someone can show me something that's really, really cool that their kid did. They just said their first word, right? They're sharing with another individual. And these are really, really important things. So I've had to learn to make a to-do list, or if I am having to stop, I go do what I do and I have to come back. So I think it's important for our kids to learn this too. So we could talk later about how we're going to do this, but just know that that's something that we all need to work on. So these are some strategies that early learners that we can work on. So we're going to talk about some visual supports, sensory modifications, self-monitoring, behavioral relaxation training, zones of regulation, and choice reels. So visual prompts. So these can be used as simple reminders to regulate behavior. We have visual prompts all the time. I was thinking about the grocery store the other day, the place I do not like to go, but every aisle tells you exactly where everything is. It's a visual prompt for us. Could you imagine if they did not tell you where the coffee aisle is or where the canned goods are? It would be extreme chaos and everybody would just be so flustered. So we have to think about, in our kids' environment, we need to have those type of guides for them too. So, excuse me, rather than an adult continually saying, we cannot leave this space, we might put up a stop sign, teach what that means. So that is regulating or being kind of a sign for their response rather than us having to be the one to interject. So for readers, a lot of our kids are very early readers. They are so smart. I always say they're smarter than me. It's probably the truth. But for text for readers, pictures for anything. So stop signs. As we go through here, there are going to be a lot more visual prompts that we're going to talk about. Here are some others. So to the right, I've seen these in classrooms before. I think they're really, really cool. They're like these kind of sensory bottles. So if a kiddo is feeling stressed out, then they know they can go to this little area, find one of their favorite kind of calming bottles. A lot of our kids like sand timers. I think they like watching the granules fall, right? So that's kind of self-soothing for them. To the left, it says, I need a break. So we might put together bins that have different activities in them for them to kind of redirect and regulate. A lot of times in those bins, we will often put like open closed activities. So we might have like a puzzle, right? There's a beginning and there's an end. So they know it's to completion. We also, and I should have put a picture up here, sometimes we'll have what we have like kind of activity bins. So we might have like a 3-drawer bin and we might have it, 1, 2, and 3. And so we know if they're starting to get dysregulated, we can even just guide them go do your bins. And so bin number 1, here's a puzzle, and they're kind of still in this mode. They'll do a puzzle, starting to calm down. They'll go to number 2, and maybe they're putting pegs on a pegboard, and they'll go to number 3. Once that's completed, then if they're to where they need to be, awesome. They have done their job, and congrats to them for keeping their behavior under control. There's also a lot of visual prompts. We are very visual learners. The majority of us are. So I really like a lot of visual prompts for our kiddos. The one to the left is kind of a breathing one where they learn to breathe in and out. Breathe in and breathe out. We also have rainbow breathing. Why do our kids love rainbows so much? I don't know. It's probably the systematic order that red, yellow, blue, and green. But we'll utilize the things that are of interest and colorful for them. This other one is hand breathing. So they basically learn to like inhale and exhale and inhale and exhale and following along here. Oftentimes we'll do countdowns with our kids too. So, we might have a couple of hands that might have numbers, and so they'll count. Sometimes we'll put them on cards too, and we'll put them on a ring. So if we see that like they're starting to get dysregulated, maybe we see kind of some of those precursor behaviors that we can guide them, go get your calming cards or whatever we end up calling them. So they can learn they're going to get their cards, and they've already learned because we've taught them how these work. They learn how to go through, so they can learn how to self-regulate. It shifts their focus to something different, right? Kind of get your mind off of whatever it is that triggered you in the first place. Visual schedules are huge, right? So at our basic level, I don't have a picture up here, but at our basic level, we might even start with like a first and then. So if we have an individual who has difficulty with transitions, so we may start with like, hey, first we're going to put up our backpack, and then we're going to eat lunch. Something very simple like that to help them understand what the expectations are and what's coming up next. As our kids get more advanced, we can make these more complicated. You'll see these like in classrooms all the time. So they can be either like a portion of the day, they can be an entire day, they can be static, so they can just be like one sheet of paper, or they can have like things where maybe you remove. So we finish with breakfast, maybe that gets taken off. So this helps with them, again, knowing what's coming up next, not to throw everything off their regular everyday occurrence. Sometimes things are going to change. So sometimes we have to change these, and we practice this with our kids. So we will actually set up something and work on it for a few days in one certain order, and then we practice throwing something else in there. It's okay. Some things are going to change, but at the end is all going to be the same. This one to the left, I think is really, really cool. So this is an example for an after-school routine clock. Obviously, this would be for more like grade school, maybe middle school, definitely not pre-K or kindergarten. But it's nice because it can tell you, like, when you're at home during this time frame, during our yellow time, from 4 to 5 is your homework. From 5 to 6 is your playtime. So it kind of gives you an idea of like what the expectations are there. To the right is another example of what they might use in class. So here we're arriving, we have breakfast, it goes on to whatever other activities we have, the center time, and then we're closing. So we use these a lot with our kids. So how do we even teach these in the first place? Well, first, it's a process, right? So first we need to teach, like, what do the pictures even mean, right? So sometimes some of our kids are okay with using like cartoons or other pictures that might represent a backpack. Some of our kids, we need to take pictures of the actual backpack because they have yet to learn that kind of generalization piece of, a drawing of a backpack is the same thing as your other backpack. We'll teach them to go and complete one activity. and maybe remove it from the board. So we're going to start small. We certainly are not going to throw out a 12-step, excuse me, a 12-step visual schedule for our beginning learners. So, and then when we practice those, we're going to be able to fade ourselves out. So when we're teaching these, just know long-term, we don't want to be the ones doing this. They need to do this. So at home, some examples would be managing a routine at home. At school would be in the classroom setting, maybe including therapy times. In the community, if you're at the grocery store, maybe you help them out with a little checklist. A nice thing too about today's day and age, there are a lot of apps that you can set up some of these visual schedules. So you can have them on your phone too, which is like, you're always going to have your phone on you anyway. So it might be something that you want to check out. So the benefits of this, they're going to feel more comfortable and safe. They know what to expect. They're portable, especially if you have the app. And they're flexible, so you can change icons whenever you go. Sensory modifications. All right, so there's lots of these. Maybe things are too loud, earplugs or headphones. You may have to work on a shaping program to get our children okay with wearing headphones. Some are really tight, right? So those noise canceling headphones may not be very comfortable at first, but we can work on that. Sunglasses, fidget toys, chewies here in the middle here. This is huge, especially for our individuals who mouth. Maybe tight-fitting clothes to make them feel more comfortable. Spinning activities, if we have a kiddo who is just overstimulated. Okay, you're overstimulated. Let's do it in a safer way. This little thing on the bottom right is a spinning fish. Very, very cool. Check it out on Amazon. I don't mean to be a plug in there for Amazon, but it's a really cool thing. And also, developing a sensory schedule or routine is very important as well. Briefly, I'm going to show here's some examples of some manipulatives. To the left, top left, we have a sensory board. It has little grooves, and they can put like these little like pipe cleaners in there. In the middle, there are grooves in there, so their fingers can kind of follow and they can learn to breathe. Same to the right. At the bottom left is play putty. So it's kind of a really dense putty that it might have little items or figures in there that they need to kind of focus and work through and pull those items out. I came across this really cool skills workbook for kids age 8 to 12. So it has a lot of self-regulatory activities that they can do. And on the right is a nice little water coloring mat, so you won't get waters everywhere. So the benefits are they can learn that they have control over their bodies. Modifications are cheap, easy, and non-intrusive. Excuse me, I'm going to skip through some of these things because I could go on for hours about this. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach them how to use them. We may, like I said, have to shape up, putting on headphones, being okay, maybe wearing different sunglasses that have different tints or colors, wearing compression shirts, things that we have to practice there. You can also use self-monitoring checklists for like in-home, like these are the expectations. You're going to wake up, you're going to feed the dog. So you're going to see those that are red have not been completed. When they're completed, they just do a simple checklist. Zones of regulation. Okay, so this in and of itself could be a 3-hour-long topic. I highly suggest, if you're of interest for this, to search through Google on it. Essentially, what this is, it's tying in different emotions with colors. For our kiddos, we want them to stay in green. So we will teach them, hey, if you're starting to go in yellow, this is what it looks like. And these are the things that we need to do to get back to green. Because once we're in red, we've hit the red zone, and it's really hard to come down after that. And we work on a lot of these things too outside of the situation. So we aren't going to just pull it in when our kids are really heightened. We're going to practice it. So it's something they're familiar with, and it's not completely novel. There's also choice wheels, which I think is really neat. Some of our kids have difficulty figuring out what to do, right? So that creates more anxiety. So we might create like a coping wheel where they can spin and be like, all right, I'm frustrated. What am I going to do? It's landing on coloring or drawing. Awesome. It made a choice for me. We've got that. We have some kiddos who have difficulty with things that are unexpected. So we may work on, hey, this is an unexpected event. First of all, what does that even mean? And then when that happens, how are we going to handle ourselves? So how to use this, we're going to teach them how to use the system, like I said, initially with us as a model while we're in their room. We might tie in some reinforcement to it. And then we want to eventually fade ourselves out. And then probably need some instructions like, hey, remember to use your choice board. Go get your visual schedule, some visual aids, that type of thing. I'm going to go through, we're kind of running out of time, so I'm not going to go through all of these, but I want to show you a couple of behavioral relaxation trainings for kind of our pre-K early learners. Some who are not able to hold their breath, we might even just do simple countdowns. So if we see that they're really anxious, we might just do like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 until they're calm. So I'm going to quickly go over and pull up a couple of these real quick. And these take about 10 seconds for it to fill in.
Raising our arms in the air. Make sure you're comfortable.
I'm going to jump.
Start with your hands by your side. Keep your arms straight and trace it upwards with your paintbrushes.
So basically, it's nice because we have the electronic piece, but moving arms.
Great.
And moving
Now
arms.
the red band is painted. Slowly bring your arms back down by your sides. Now you need to match your breathing to your painting.
She's very, very calm. So, so that's something too. If our kids are really into electronics, you may want to pull some of these up. Here's another one too that our kids really like. It teaches them to kind of like when they're silly, how do they calm and how they regulate. I'm going to briefly play a brief little bit here.
We're gonna bend our worries away. We're gonna clap, we're gonna stomp, we're gonna bring our energy up. We're gonna clap, we're gonna stomp, we're gonna bring our energy up. We're going silly, 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 silly. Breathe in. Breathe out.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to hop through these real quick. We're running out of time. I apologize. We're going to get you all the PowerPoints, by the way. So as you get older, you can kind of do more intricate relaxation techniques. So you start working on calming from your, working on your head, tensing up, relaxing all your muscles all the way down to your shoulders, your chest, your legs, breathing in. I don't know if any of you have heard of 478. I use it all the time. I recommend it to some friends of mine. And one the other day, he has high anxiety levels. And he's like, thank you so much. I use it all the time. So I'm going to go through this real quick with you guys if you want to join me. And nobody can see you. So that's awesome. And this is something you can find on the internet all over the place. I like this one because it's a little cartoonish. So I think it's going to capture some of our younger kids, be more entertaining than just some random person talking. So let me pull this up. Oops. Apologize about that.
Ready to try it all together now?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, wait, no. Let me take a deep breath first. Okay. Ready. Great. Everyone sit straight up. You can follow along with us if you like. Now, take a deep breath through your nose for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Now hold that breath for 7 seconds. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Excellent. Now slowly release that breath for 8 seconds. 3, 4, 5, job, guys.
I have a question. What if I can't hold my breath for 7 seconds?
It's okay. It just takes a little practice. Do what you can for now. Let's try it one more time. Breathe in through your nose.
Okay. So she's not joking. If you guys tried that at all, when you do, and if you do try it, you'll find that, oh my goodness, it's not that easy to hold your breath. But as you practice more and become more comfortable with it, and this is another reason why we need to practice outside of those situations, right? So we know how to control our breathing. I suggest doing this, probably practicing 5 to 10 minutes a day. So when the situation does arise that you do need to use this technique, then it's available for you. Nice thing about it, you can do it anytime, anywhere, and it's always available and it's free. Okay, so like I said, most of these need to be practiced outside of behavioral episodes. If you guys practice these, like I just did one round. Usually if I'm going to do a 4, 7, 8, I'll do it 3 to 5 times. And I am so completely relaxed. I'm like, I'm ready for a nap, right? So doing these practicing outside, you'll get more control of how to do that. Okay. So here we're going to do some do's and don'ts, and then we'll do some Q&As if there's any questions or experiences that you all want to share. So we do want to model self-control and self-regulation in your own words and your actions. So we have to be the model for our kids. All right, we can't fly off the handle. Go give yourself 5 if you're getting stressed out. We need to keep to a structured and predictable routine. This also includes bedtime routines. A lot of our children have difficulty with that. So reach out and we can definitely help you with that to kind of stabilize and regulate everything. Make the environment calmer. You know, do you have really bright lights in your house? Maybe we need to change out the lighting. Maybe we need to put covers to dim those a little bit. And limit playtime interaction with other impulsive individuals, and maybe even some items that may stimulate or overstimulate the system. Take a break if you feel overwhelmed, and teach the skill to calm, integrate it every day. What we do not do is try to reason in the middle of a meltdown or tantrum. I see this all the time. I have a kid who's crying and screaming, and the parent's like, honey, tell me what's wrong. How are you feeling right now? That is not the time to do it. I don't know if you guys have ever been upset and then people trying to talk to you in the middle of it. That's not going to help, right? And just stopping a behavior without teaching any regulatory behaviors, it's not going to happen. It's just going to change, maybe even to something that's maybe worse and less safe. And don't turn it into a battle of control. So it's not like you're going to do what I do. We have to really know our individuals and adjust to their needs. And I also put this on here. So always be sure when we talk about functions of behavior, which is a whole nother series in of itself. If you find that we have some of these behaviors occurring, always following like a directive, whether it's implied or it's an instruction. If they're doing this to get out of things, it's probably not the best time to like go do your puzzles, right? So just understand like what the context is, why we're seeing what we're seeing. So in summary, it's an essential skill for all of us. It's not just our kids on the spectrum, it's adults too. I've ran into a number of adults who have not developed self-regulatory skills, and it's something that continuously needs to be practiced. Okay, I have a list of resources here. You guys are more than welcome to check out. And we're going to pull Casey back on here to see if there's any questions that you all had for me. And if not,
Everyone, yeah, I'm not seeing any questions or in the chat or the Q&A. So if you do have any, feel free to pop those in there and we can get those addressed.
awesome. Yeah, I'd be curious too, like, you know, what kind of situations do you guys run in, you know, with either in your personal life or with your kids? Like, so this was geared towards, you know, younger kids. I'm pre-K, kindergarten, grade school. We may have one later that's more geared towards like teenagers and adults. But yeah, I'm just curious, like, what do you guys do to self-regulate just personally? Or how do you help your child regulate? Is this something maybe that we didn't discuss that maybe you could share with the community? anything like that. I know we do a lot of countdowns. Some of our kids do coloring or painting. Casey, what do you do to regulate?
The deep breathing for sure, and that take in 5. I definitely have to do that
Do a
periodically.
lot of
So,
take 5.
yeah.
I just do
Mhm.
5.
Sometimes 10.
That I do puzzles too. So that's a huge thing as well. So
We did just get a comment as somebody said that their son jumps on a trampoline while waiting on his bus in the morning.
I love that. Yay, it's safe, right? You're in one spot. You're not running around. You're not jumping on the furniture. So a genius move. We have a trampoline that gets used all the time in our centers, bean bags. We also have swings. So they have swings in the doorway if you're not aware of too, to kind of help with that whole vestibular movement that some of our kids seek. I love that. That's a great idea. Water plays too. Water play is huge for our kids' sensory needs. Yeah.
Another comment that says they're poor at modeling self-regulation, which is probably not true. So my children get a lot of opportunities witnessing him or her failing and trying to recover. So this was very helpful. So thanks, Julie.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, we're only human. So I think like just even taking that 5 for ourselves. Look, you know, like I said, I love what I do. And you know, we make huge differences, but it can be trying at times, you know. I'm just like, oh my goodness, what is going on right now? It's a full moon, right? It's gotta be a full moon. Everything's popping off. So I have to learn for myself. I need to go take 5 because if I respond inappropriately right now, front of my individuals, guess what they're going to learn? The same thing, right? So I think that's really good to be cognizant about that and aware and be able to you know, just modify our behavior. Nobody's perfect. So thanks for that. I think it probably makes all of us feel a little more comfortable and human.
Bubbles, those are always a huge hit with most of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
children
good
in our
one.
clinic. So,
Bubbles. Yay,
yeah.
bubbles and bubble machines.
Yes. All right. Well, I want to say thank you, Julie, for a wonderful presentation and sharing your expertise with us. Everyone, please know that you are going to be receiving an email with a survey for tonight's event, and we kindly ask that you do complete that so we can get some feedback. That's the only way we can improve things. I also would like to invite you to our Kansas Autism Summit that will be held in person on April 16th, and you can see the details on the screen. That will be held in Topeka. It's our second annual event in Topeka that we are going to be hosting as far as like an autism conference or summit goes. It will be at the Bishop Professional Development Center, and registration is going to be released soon, and you'll be able to find that on our Easter Seals Midwest website. So please keep an eye out for that if you are interested in it. Other than that, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you at our next 3 webinars. And if you are interested in signing up for those, please just go back to where you registered for this one, and you'll see the other 3 as well. Someone asked if there's going to be in-person events in St. Louis. That's definitely something we can pass on to our St. Louis autism team and see if that's something they're planning on doing in the future. But we hope that you guys are able to join us for our future webinars and again at our Kansas Autism Summit. And I hope everybody has a wonderful evening and stay safe and warm out there.
Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it, everybody.
Julie.
Have a great evening and stay calm. All right. Thank you.